Right.
Pete in Afghanistan and in Iraq was a spy. And that doesn't necessarily mean he's, walking around in a black hat, like hiding behind poles and everything else. Pete, tell us what you did as a spy.
Yeah. So one of the things I learned early on in my career was that my job is to give the commander the things that they don't have so that they can accomplish their mission. That's what a spy does. And for the most part, most modern commanders have a 4-line mission statement. They all say it's unique and everything, but here's the basic mission statement of everybody. It's close with and destroy the enemy. That's objective number 1. 2, protect the force. 3, enable the enablers that are leaving the camp. Like the people like me, people who do agricultural things, people who do the projects and non-lethal efforts. And then the 4th one is to teach and train, enable the local forces, partner with the local forces and get out and go do that. So those are the 4 things. And for the most part, I never focused on close with and destroy because the entire unit is focused on that. So if I got something about that, great. But what about the other 3 line items that we're working on? Like, hey, if your partnership effort is not working, commander, would you want to know about that? Would you want to know if you've got toxic relationships? Would you want to know if you've got incapable people? Those are the things that I focused on because nobody else focused on them. And so it was all this fertile ground to help a commander go, wow, I can really lead this. I can fix this part of my effort. And so when I did the bulk of my work, it was focused on those things, so much so that if someone gave me something threat related, I would give it to the threat focused folks. So I would never undermine their mission and I would never compromise my position with the locals as I built trust. So I'm building trust. I'm getting information for the commander that he can't have, oftentimes getting it from the locals themselves, not unbeknownst to them, but something that they wouldn't necessarily want to reveal to me. And that's the kind of spying that I do. It's highly effective and it's powerful for a commander. And so when I'm out there and talking in the villages and looking for answers to those 3 other efforts, how do we protect the forest? How do we do our mission better in terms of teaching and training? How do we get those enablers out to be successful? There's a lot of fertile ground there for me to cover and bring information back. And that's how I learned everything I learned, was by focusing on these aspects.
So, this isn't just about Robert Gates either. How many other secretaries? We had Gates, Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, Mattis.
Yeah.
They all failed too.
Yeah. Secretaries of State, secretaries of Defense. How many commanding generals said we've turned the corner in Afghanistan? And I literally counted at one time and I stopped counting at 6 corners. Because
a lot of corners.
To even say those words, right? Like if you're a general and you're like, I cannot say the words, we've turned the corner. Secretary Mattis said it. All kinds of generals said this thing, right? And you didn't turn the corner, or you turned it so often you were going in circles. And that's sort of the greater point of that. And so when I look at that, is it unfair for me to say that these folks failed? No, because they were the ones that had the authority, they had the budget, they had all the discretion, they had all the advice from all the think tanks. And what they didn't have was the ground truth. And so they would continue to believe that they were able to do this thing. To this day, apparently, Robert Gates thinks they can get this right. I'm not saying that we couldn't do it. I'm saying that we didn't do it. And because
what was the ultimate mission? I mean, what we were sold on is fight the terrorists over there, right? And so, early on, that's exactly what we did. Arguably, maybe we did that all these 20 years, but there was so much more to what the mission became.
I can be with a battalion that's focused on, it's an infantry battalion focused on closing with and destroying the enemy, and watch them not kill a single Taliban for months at a time because the Taliban won't engage. That's not how they fight the fight. And why would they? Why would they mass so that an American unit could go kill them? So they pick their fights. They as soon as we go home, they come out. They work the night. We work the day. And they're much better at it because they can stay and they can hide in plain sight. So we got our asses handed to us for 20 years as well. So sure, did we kill some bad guys? Absolutely. Absolutely. But if you only focused on the military aspect in these state building kind of fights, you are ignoring the social, the cultural, the political, the religious, all the economic, all of these other aspects of the fight, the affect over the effect. If you can't create the affect you want, you cannot win. And so what folks like Secretary Gates, and we'll use him because he's the one that was opening his big mouth, when he says, oh, we just got to spend more money, spend more time. No, we don't. We don't have the capacity to do this. And what I'm saying this is not that we don't have great Americans focused on this and pouring their heart and soul and their careers into this. It's we don't bother to learn how to do this well. and we haven't. We've had time to learn how to do it well, right? And I think one of the things, most powerful notes in this whole piece is towards the end, in the conclusion, and this is 100% true. We've all spent more time learning how to put sunscreen on our bodies than we ever learned how to even use an interpreter. And you think about that, like here's a place where you need an interpreter, and it's complicated language-wise, not because Dari or Pashto are hard, but because what do they speak there, and what does that mean to them? What is their local language? The official government language of Afghanistan is Dari, but go speak that in Pashtunistan and that part of the country, and you won't be relevant, right? And so we haven't even learned how to use an interpreter as an institution. Do we go out and do it anyhow? Yes, but you don't fire your weapon because you just know how to do it. You learn as an institution how to do it. You learn your tactics and techniques, like how to drive a tank. We measure that all the time. Can you drive this tank? Can you put it in the right spot in combat? Can you hit your targets? Great. You're validated to deploy to go talk to people now. And if we don't see a problem with that, I do. It doesn't work. And so you can't prep for something that's going to be combat focused if the primary mission, and Brad, you've heard me ask this question on the Break It Down show all the time, of SEALs especially. Have you fired more bullets or had more conversations in conflict zones? And one exception, there's one person that said the other way. All the rest laughed and said way more conversations than rounds.
Yeah. So on your point about learning to use interpreters, I mean, it goes beyond just, learning to use them in the field. We have a big debate going on about whether these Afghani interpreters are going to be, admitted to the United States and can apply for citizenship. Yeah, can migrate here, because they're basically dead men walking in Afghanistan. When we leave, these are the first people they're going to round up, the people who collaborated with the Americans.
Yes. Yeah. They're going to call them. They're going to kill them.
We even have a very specific case of an Afghani interpreter who is here, who may be deported, is being denied citizenship, and may be deported for having, quote, collaborated with the Taliban when he was 9 years old by bringing him a slice of bread at the instruction of his mom. He was perfectly truthful in his citizenship interview, and now it looks like he's going to be deported. How messed up is that?
It's really messed up. Let me talk about this for a few minutes. And this is squarely on the Biden administration here. If you're going to have a very permissive policy on the southern border, why on earth would you penalize people to the point of death for working with us? If you live in the Taliban regions, which is a lot of Afghanistan, some areas not, but in a lot of them, you are aligned with the Taliban. You have to be, because if you don't, you die. So to put that on a kid, to put that on a man, look, they don't want, it's just like if you were in, we always love to use Nazis as our bad guy. If you're in Nazi Germany and you're trying to survive because your country's at war, and right now it's the Nazis, then you just let these think that you're on their side, and the moment you get a better deal, you change your allegiance. This is not a shock to hear this. Yeah. So of course we always did this. Look, we put people in a box, a Taliban box, right? We would assess them as being aligned with the Taliban, and we would put it on this little report card that we could all read. I'm going to read about Brad Hutchings. Oh, he's aligned with the Taliban. That will never, ever, ever change. No one will have the guts to go, I've met Brad, I've talked with him on audio for hours. Nothing I've ever said has been about the Taliban with him. He, to my knowledge, has nothing going on with them at all anymore.